Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends from DVCRentalStore.com, Mr. Paul Krieger.
Hey, everybody.
From MoneraFinancial.com, Ms. Amy Krieger.
Hello.
From DVCResaleMarket.com, Danny Metzger.
Hi there.
He's one of the sales associates over there. And Linda Smith, who's also a sales associate with DVC Resale Market, and our producer back in the Nook, Mr. Craig Williams.
Hi.
Who is nothing to do at all with DVC. He doesn't own DVC, he doesn't. But he's a wonderful producer, and just a reminder, folks, this show, along with all of our DVC content, brought to you by the world of DVC, which includes DVCResaleMarket.com, where you could save a lot of money on a DVC contract. DVCRentalStore.com, where you can rent out your points or rent points if you'd like to try DVC before you buy. And then our good friends over at MoneraFinancial.com, who I always call the crack dealers of the DVC world because they make it so easy to finance your DVC resale contract. And as you mentioned on our last show, you can now even finance part of your closing costs.
Yep, that is correct. So you can really just lower that cash that's due, to get in.
And because sometimes
DVC
that can be that can be a lot of money.
Yep.
You do a closing can be a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So there you have it. DVCResaleMarket.com, DVCRentalStore.com, and MoneraFinancial.com. So if you like our content, you want to show your support, that's the best way to do it. Use those companies for your DVC needs. Okay, so this week we are going to talk about DVC myths. And Paul has been, you had something out on Facebook?
Yep, we put a little survey out on the DVC fan Facebook group, basically asking people to share their DVC myths with us, because I think that especially for people that have not purchased DVC yet, to hear all of these things about Disney Vacation Club. It may even be things that we say on these shows and stuff like that, that for them are a little confusing, kind of maybe in the myth space. And so I thought it'd be fun to just discuss some myths and maybe debunk them in today's show. And I think what you just sort of ended with, talking about Monera Financial, talking about closing costs and all of that.
Oh, I thought you meant that they're crack dealers.
Well, we can take this too, because it's actually a double whammy. I've got two myths that are on here. The first one that someone put on the Facebook group was that Amy Krieger is a crack dealer, and that is in fact a myth. You will not get any drugs.
Okay, so let me just be clear. Metaphorically, she's a crack dealer. Okay, not literally.
And if you were looking for crack,
Now, fentanyl is a completely different story. Fentanyl's a completely different story. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So clear that one up first and foremost.
thank you for that.
You're welcome. But I thought this one went hand in hand with that, which is a good starting place for this, and I think it's where most people with DVC get that initial sticker shock. It's DVC is unaffordable, not worth the money. And I can't think of a bigger myth when it comes to looking at this program as a whole. And I've been there. We've been there when we first were looking at Disney Vacation Club. We looked at the cost. We looked at the Grand Floridian. We laughed. We were like, I don't have that kind of money. I can't afford this. It doesn't make sense for us. But here we are, however many years later, and we've got a boatload of points. Because it does make that financial sense, and because of Monera, because of what Disney Vacation Club offers direct in terms of financing, or if you just do the simple math, it makes sense. Like,
yeah.
It's affordable, and I think that's one of the biggest myths worth debunking.
Well, and it's it's a myth that's born and it's understandable when you look at the initial cost, right? And it's I don't know. $10, $15, $20, $30,000, sometimes more. You look at that, like you said, you get that sticker shock. Well, I could buy a car for that. But when you when you dig into the details, when you do the research, we say all the time, compare what you're spending
Yep.
on a hotel room.
Yeah.
And that money, once you're done spending that money for that week in a hotel room, it's gone. You don't own anything. You're just renting. Whereas with DVC, you actually own something.
Yeah, and I think the discovery of it is breaking down with that guest that says not worth it. My question would be, compared to what? Compared to how do you vacation? I'm going to do that discovery. We're going to peel that onion. We're going to write down, okay, when do you go? Where do you go? How do you stay? Because you can easily take that purchase price and have them write down on a piece of paper what they've been spending on each vacation, divide it into that purchase price. That is real simple math. Because I feel, particularly with new families, you've got to keep it real basic, real simple. But you can show them if they are taking vacations. If they're not, then I've got to take the path that do you want to? Because this is a way you're going to go better places, stay in high quality, safe places with your children, and have something to leave them. So it's a mindset.
And what's comical about that is that sometimes the most analytical minds are the ones that dismiss it the quickest. And they're the ones that want to see the numbers, want to look at the numbers, but they dismiss it before they even see any of that real data. And then they come back to it and like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? And it's like,
Yeah, see, we hear that a lot.
yeah,
We hear
it's
that a
like,
lot.
well,
Yeah.
you
Some of
dismissed
our
it.
biggest clients are bankers, financial advisors, attorneys, because they dismissed it for so long. And then when they actually look at the numbers, I think you could be a numbers person, but at the same time also be one of those people that just kind of swipe your card and you're like, oh God, I don't want to look at the price, and you never look back. And if that's you, then you are going to look at this and be like, that's way too expensive, because you've never actually sat and looked at the numbers. If you do, it's a no-brainer.
Oh, and it was great on the ships when they'd come in, because my personal thing is I never ask people what they do for a living. Usually they just tell me. So the CPAs like to tell you that. Oh, I'm a financial planner, I'm a hedge fund guy, I'm this, I'm that, an engineer. Great. Because on this ship, I'm going to go through all the numbers with you, and you're that person who cannot and will not decide here right now.
Yeah.
But I know on a ship, they're with me for about 7 days. So I've got them there.
Got a captive
So
audience.
I'm like, here, take it all back and show me. We talked about break even. When's your break even? Now they come back. Oh, you're right. I got a break even. Oh, great. Well, let's talk a little bit more. So I think it's just breaking the wall down, and it is a mental wall. It is.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if this is on the list somewhere. I was watching something the other night or last week when I think it was John Oliver on Last Week Tonight did a bit about timeshares, and more specifically though about the companies that exist
We watched that one.
to get you out of your timeshare, because traditionally speaking, timeshares have no resale value. If you look at any other timeshare company, it has absolutely no resale value.
Yep. Remember he showed ones that were listed for $0.
Yeah, literally, they'll give them
Zero.
away. They'll
Yeah.
give them away just to get out from underneath the dues. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, that is such a huge advantage with DVC, because these contracts historically, just the caveat that historical performance is no guarantee of future results, but historically, DVC has really held its value, and that's why there is such a thriving resale market for DVC. There's a thriving resale market.
Yeah.
So that myth, once you buy a timeshare you can't get out of it, is absolutely not true with DVC.
And what I love about working for DVC Resale Market is on this side of things, I can actually talk to a member who bought this, say 10, 15, 20 years ago, took all those vacations, and now they're selling the membership because maybe the grandkids are grown or they can't travel for more than what they paid
Yeah.
for. And so
All the time.
20 years less on the deed.
Thank you. It is only with this product that I see that. Only with this product.
Well,
It's
that's
tremendous.
That's why we only buy and sell DVC and not any other timeshare
Yeah.
out there.
So back on that episode that you watched of Last Week Tonight, Paul and I were watching that, and we were like, we're like torn between like, this is really interesting, and oh my gosh, please don't say Disney Vacation Club. And he mentioned a lot of different, timeshare companies, and Disney Vacation Club, obviously was not one of them. And we always see in the DVC fan Facebook group a lot, people will say, oh, I got one of those get out your timeshare calls today.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said, well, I own Disney Vacation Club, they're like, oh, thank you, goodbye.
Yep.
Have a good day. Yeah, so I
Yeah,
thought that was
exactly.
funny.
And that does cover one that was on the list, that DVC is like other timeshares, which was
It just isn't, and that's not just in terms of resale and being able to get out if you need to get out. The sales process.
Right.
There was that one clip they showed in that of
Oh, the
was
guy
Westgate.
that said, I'm a diabetic and I just needed to get away and
no
eat something.
no
Oh, that's
they
what-
were the guy was it was a sales manager that was revving up his salespeople before the day started,
gosh.
saying, "You're saving lives."
Yeah.
You're saving lives because people need vacations to reduce their stress. It helps them live longer. You are as important as doctors and as important as EMTs.
Yeah.
And I won't mention the company that was doing that. You can go watch the clip.
I might have already said it.
Well, Westgate. Yeah.
And they ring the cowbell when somebody buys.
Yeah. It's
Even when they don't, they ring the cowbell.
all of the because timeshares are notoriously sleazy, notoriously. Sleazy sales tactics, sleazy agents. None of that goes on with DVC.
When we used to work on the ship and someone would come down, it was actually downstairs on deck 2 to learn about DVC, and they'd come into our offices. If it was like really loud outside and kids were running back and forth, sometimes we'd be like, do you mind if we close the door? And the look on these people's faces, and I'm like, have you sat through a timeshare presentation before? And they're like, yes. I'm like, don't worry, I'm not locking the door. Like, you can leave at any time. It's just noisy out there. But the fear and the stories that we've heard, oh my goodness.
That would be scary if they're taking you down to deck 2 for this.
Well,
sales
that's yeah.
presentation.
We
It's
would
like, "Come
always
on down
joke
here."
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I opened Vero Beach many years ago. A very nice man came in to look at Vero and buy DVC, and he was kind of folded arms the whole time, and very, very afraid. And I said, "Have you had a bad experience?" He said, "Yeah, I went to a timeshare presentation in Cocoa Beach somewhere, and they took my car keys. And
Oh,
they wouldn't
my
let
God.
me. They wouldn't let me leave." I said,
it's
"Well,
crazy.
that's not going to happen here. You're welcome to leave anytime you'd like to."
Yeah,
It's crazy out there.
It's very different. It's a very, very different experience. And one of the things I appreciate, because I'll say this carefully, even in the DVC resale environment, there can be some bad actors. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
I won't mention names, but there can be some bad actors. One of the things I appreciate about DVC resale market is that all of you, every single one of you, were at some point working directly for DVC.
Yep.
You were working directly for DVC.
Yeah.
So none of those sleazy pitches, none of that crap goes on with resale market, because you guys you're all pros.
Thank you.
Yes,
You're all
thank
pros.
you. And
Yeah.
it's not just the people selling you either. It's also our contract team,
The
our
admin
concierge
team.
team. Like everyone is a former Disney cast member, so you're really getting that service from start to finish.
Yeah, exactly. So what else? What else did they bring up?
So a couple sort of in the process of buying DVC, buy where you want to stay. Now they're claiming in this that is a myth, and I can sort of see both sides of that. If you don't care as much about where you want to stay, and I think we always put that caveat when we put this out there, if you are concerned about getting into a certain resort, if you really love a certain resort, you are going to want to buy at that resort so that you can ensure that that is where you know that at the 11-month booking window, year after year, you're going to be able to stay there. But if you don't care about that, if you love all of the properties, similar to how Amy and I are now, we do have a couple of our contracts that we care about because they are our direct points at these places. We want to stay there pretty regularly, and that's why we've bought those home resorts. But there are people that buy points that, they don't care about that. They don't care if they own at Saratoga and they only get to stay at Saratoga because they still love Saratoga. Saratoga is a beautiful resort. So is Old Key West. The same can be said by a lot of people that are buying Alani points. A lot of people buy Alani points and they use them at Walt Disney World. And it's they're buying because it's a little bit of a cheaper value, a little bit of a easier point cost when you look at that upfront cost when it comes to DVC. But I still would say buy where you want to stay, but if you don't care where you're going to stay, if you love all the properties, then I agree where that could be a myth in that regard. So,
Well, and I think it's where you live as well. Floridians and the drive market tends not to want to do peak. They don't want all that crowd. But I'll tell you what, it's not a peak season, but I think it should be, is the Food and Wine Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you, if you want to stay at Boardwalk and Beach Club, you got to own it. Yeah. You got to own it. Even Flower and Garden, that Epcot area is so important. So that's another piece of discovery. When you're talking about which resort to buy, is what's important to you where you stay, what type of planner are you, because there's certain times. Because the last thing you want is a family to spend the money and get in, and then you get a phone call. They can't get in. Well, that's just not going to happen. We're going to tell you up front, and then you have to make the decision.
Or
Go ahead. And a lot of resorts have their own things like that, So for Boardwalk and Beach Club, it's a lot of food and wine. Vero Beach, it's prime time, spring break, the season, whenever most people want to be on the beach. For Grand Californian, it's every day. So you just have to know what is your desire? What do you care about the most? And if it is that I want to stay at Grand Californian every year around this time, well, then you are probably a candidate that should be buying specific points at that specific resort. But if you are of the notion of, like Paul said, I like all the resorts, I don't really care, I'm just going to use my points, I'm going to take whatever I can get, then the most economical resort is going to be what you probably want to buy.
I'm probably a unique situation. So I own at Saratoga because at this point in my life, I don't care where I'm going to stay, but learn from my mistakes because I probably wasn't thinking about the future when I bought in I just can't think more than like 5 years out, and I bought, a while ago. But if you have a family with young kids, like location is everything at Disney. I mean, you're spending a lot of money on those tickets, a lot of money on everything there. And so having the opportunity to just hop on the monorail or hop on the ferry and get right back to your resort is huge. So I would really encourage, if you have small kids that like need to go back in the middle of the day to take a nap or, to get a bite to eat, think about where you're buying as your home resort, because you are going to want to stay closer to the parks. But if you don't care and you're like me, you could buy at Saratoga because you get the best of all worlds.
Well, you could be like me and just buy everywhere.
That too. You can own at multiple home resorts as well.
Yeah, I've got plenty.
And how many times have I maybe spoken to someone who, if I get a chance to speak, I totally recommend a phone call with an agent too when you can. It's more personal. But how many times I've had somebody say, well, I'll just buy Vero Beach because it's cheaper, I can get a lot more points, and then I'll just kind of use them wherever. No. It does not work that way. If you want to stay at the Grand Floridian, I would recommend that you buy the Grand Floridian and not Vero Beach to stay at the Grand Floridian. So it is definitely a topic you want to get into, and you want to be thoughtful about it.
And I think all of us here at this table are testament to this one, which is that it's not worth it for locals. And that was one of the myths that is out there.
Myth.
And for us, I think we've bought collectively more points now that we're locals than we owned prior to moving down here. Granted, one of those contracts is a Grand Cal contract, but overall, you still want to be on property. You still want to be there for Food and Wine Fest, like you said, Linda, or for Mickey's Very Merry, or for Halloween Party, or for now we're even getting more addicted to Disney and doing Run Disney events. So you want to stay there for those Run Disney events and all of that kind of stuff. And so you find yourself actually using more points and staying on property more because it makes more sense.
Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting. When you're local, you also start to branch out a little more. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people who become DVC members are very blind, one track, Walt Disney World, I want to go to Walt Disney World, and that's where we're going to go. And it takes a little bit to pull those people out and say, okay, try Alani, try Vero Beach, try Hilton Head, try, Disneyland. And I think that when you're local, now I live at Disney World, and although I love to use my points for those, weekends and special evenings and stuff like that, I also want to branch out, and I want to go and see Alani, and I want to go to Disneyland a little bit more, and I want to go to those other resorts.
And when you think about those big moments in your life that you want to celebrate, your birthdays, anniversaries, that kind of thing, where's the first place that you want to go and celebrate? And so you'll start celebrating literally every big moment in your life at Disney. And now all of a sudden you need all these points that you never thought you needed before. It is such a cool way to own DVC.
And now all your family wants to come stay with you at
Exactly.
Disney.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And you know what? For the Drive Mark, and particularly Florida, I learned years ago, and I was just amazed that Florida ranks like the third or fourth biggest market base of membership.
Really? Yeah.
You don't have to get on a plane. We don't have to get on a plane to go to Disney. Just think of all that savings and time, and if you get lucky and you call up, like you said, you want to go for your birthday or an anniversary, and there's availability, you just go.
Yep.
You just do it.
Another segment on this topic that sort of made us think about doing a DVC Myths was an article that's actually on the DVC Resale Market site called The 5 Biggest Myths About DVC Resale. And I thought those, just incorporating one or two of those in here is also worthwhile, because I thought this one was pretty funny. Direct members receive first choice on making reservations over resale members, which...
Wow.
Yeah, I mean... Someone must have come up with this and said this to someone at some point in time.
I've seen that question asked multiple times.
Yeah, and it is not true.
Debunked.
Debunked, exactly.
Put it to bed.
But yeah, no, that is just something that's significantly not true with resale. They have the same rights at that 11-month booking window. Everyone's in the same bucket of points. Everyone still has the same opportunity to book at that 11-month booking window. Are there resale restrictions once we get into that 7-month booking window related to all resorts? Yes. And I think that's one of the things that the DVC Resale article does very well, is it literally has a chart that lays out, what myths are true, what myths are not. And there's a whole laundry list of them related to direct versus resale. But a great article. Are there any, just from a sales perspective, are there any other big ones that you guys hear of?
I think the biggest one that I get repetitively is someone will say, if I buy Animal Kingdom, I can only stay at Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
No, the funny thing is you go on the Disney website, and it is a little bit confusing when they run down through the restrictions. It almost sounds like maybe that could be, but when it comes down to it, no, that's not true. The only place that is going to restrict you to be only at that place right now is Riviera, and of course the towers come along. But you buy Riviera Resale, that's the only place that you're going to stay. You buy any of the classics, you can stay at all of them but Riviera. So I think that's where the confusion comes.
Yeah.
In that is how that's presented.
Yeah. And talking about booking, one question I get asked a lot is, can I book my reservations through member services and through the DVC portal if I buy resale? And yes, absolutely. You're still a DVC member just because you don't get all the incidental benefits that virtual blue card. You still have a login to get onto the website, to bank and borrow your points, look at your account, and book your reservations. And you can also call member services as well. And then also another one that I get a lot is from members, existing members who have already bought direct, and they say, if I add on a resale contract, I'll lose all of my benefits that I got when buying direct. And that it couldn't be more opposite, actually, is the case. So
Yeah. So a question that we see a lot, so I don't know if it's necessarily a myth, but it's something that people think is possible. And we get this a lot in the group from very, very new members. And they'll say something to the effect of, if I buy 50 points at Grand Floridian and 300 points at Saratoga, at the 11-month window, am I allowed to use all those points at Grand Floridian? And the answer is, unfortunately, no. All points at the home resort window maintain their home resort status. So if you own 50 points at Grand Floridian at that home resort window, then you've got those 50 points to work with from that 11 to 8 or 7, 7 months or higher window. And then at 7 months, that's when you're allowed to use other points from other resorts. So keep that in mind. If you're purchasing that at the home resort window, you can only use points for that resort.
And that's a DVC rule in general. That's
Yeah.
not just because you added on resale.
Yeah.
Even if you bought 2 direct contracts, 2 at different home resorts, you'd have the same home resort rules.
All right, let's do one more. You got anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple here. You won't get good value buying direct. And I think we kind of discussed this a little bit in one of our last shows,
Yeah.
too, which is that there is value buying direct.
There is.
There
Can be.
There can be.
There can be.
You need to do the math. You need to make sure it makes sense for you. Like I've always said, I think that everyone essentially becomes a hybrid member at some point in time in their article or in their
Most people, not everybody, but a lot of people do.
yeah. And just to come full circle with one more, don't finance a contract versus do finance a contract. So we'll come back to Monera real quick. A lot of people, there's a lot of these advocates that are out there that are like, if you've got to finance a vacation, why would you ever finance a vacation? And you've given the greatest example of that I've ever heard of when it comes to our Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, so obviously the numbers are different for everybody, and I encourage you to do numbers for yourself. But for some people, this is how you are able to buy in, right? This is what lowers the barrier to entry and allows you to become a member. And so for Paul and I, that's what allowed us, oh my gosh, however many years ago, 2018, so not too long ago, but this is what allowed us to become a member, was that we financed. And back then we didn't even know, World DVC wasn't World DVC yet, the companies were separate, but we borrowed from Monera. And it was our first contract. It was the Animal Kingdom, 160 points, and we paid $97 a point, and we financed that contract. I think we did for like a 4-year term. We did pay it off a little early because, you can make extra payment. There's no prepayment penalty. You can always save interest by doing that. And we paid it off not too early because we had 2 other loans that we had financed through Disney Direct. So we hit those up first, and we paid those off first. But then by the time we got to Monera, I think it was like only 4 months early. I did the math and I looked at the interest that we had paid over the course of those 3 years, 8 months or whatever. And I looked at the price of Animal Kingdom 160 point contracts then. And I said to myself, if we had waited and we had saved up to pay cash, because everyone says you should pay cash, if we had waited and saved up, it would have taken us at least that amount of time, at least those 3 years, 8 months, probably longer, because I'm not gonna lie, when I save for something, sometimes I find other uses for that money. That's just the way it goes. And so if we had waited that length of time, saved that money up, by the time we went to purchase and paid cash, we would have paid $6,000. It was over $6,000 more dollars for that contract because of the inflation on the contract, because of the price. Those prices were going for about $130 a point by that time. And we only paid a little over $3,000 in interest. So we saved like $3,000 or so dollars by financing, paying it, buying it early, and then we also used it for those 3 years and 8 months. Instead of waiting and not having it until then.
And it's important for people to remember, generally speaking, the prices of these resale contracts don't go down. Generally speaking, they go up year over year. And you talk to somebody who bought Animal Kingdom 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and what they paid then versus what these contracts are going for now. Generally speaking, these things appreciate over time. So yeah, they get more expensive.
And while you were saving, you also have to remember you wouldn't have been able to do vacations in that time because you have to save that money. So then what, are you just going to stop taking vacations for 10 years while you're saving? No, that's not the case. You're still going to go to Disney. You're going to pay rack rate in the meantime. And then you're going to turn around and be like, I could have bought double the points by now.
And in that time, oh my goodness, we, in those almost 4 years, we took both of our moms to Disney. We stayed in a 2-bedroom villa at Jumbo House. We were coming down like 5 times a year before we moved. And so we used it. Like, we really used it. Now, obviously, we bought some more points eventually and added on, and that helped us. But do the math and look at it for yourself. And at the end of the day, like, if it's what makes you happy and you're going to pay a little bit of interest because of that, then, that's why we bought the car we wanted. We didn't wait and save up so we can pay cash for something lesser than what we wanted. We financed it, we paid it off, and now we have what we want. So,
Well, and it goes to show, too, is that, this is real estate. The membership is real estate, and most of us, can't pay cash for a house. So in the waiting game of saying, well, I'm going to wait and pay cash for Disney Vacation Club, my question is, again, to what you were saying is, well, are you going to not take a vacation during that time while you're saving up your cash? Well, no, I probably will vacation. Okay, so that money could have been put towards the Disney Vacation Club rather than you go on the vacation, you spend all the rental dollars, the tax on top of it, and what do you have to show for it? Just receipts. So the biggest thing at Disney was on their loans, and I think it's true here as well, Monera, is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the most popular loan is the longest term.
Yeah.
Because there's no prepayment penalty. They can go 12 years. Disney Direct can go 10. So Monera can give you an extra 2 years on that. You can prepay it when you want to. There's no penalty, and just an extra $100 a month towards that loan, you're going to augment that interest.
Yeah.
So it is what you want.
So we go out to 12 years, and we are like one of the longest in the industry. I think Disney itself is 10 years. And you're right, that makes that monthly payment lower. And I see the numbers every day. I'm originating these loans, and I have a Monera loan right now that we took out for Grand Cal, and it was for 12 years because I wanted that low monthly payment. And we've just put extra money on it every time. And in 1 year of having that loan, it's already down to 3 years. You know what I mean? Instead of 12. It's because we've made extra payments. So, we're going to have that paid off within the next year. And then we finance for 2 years and we have a Grand Cal contract. So this is not financial advice. This is just my experience. Obviously, you need to do the research for yourself, but financing can work.
See, I think, and there's one in this Facebook thread that I think is fantastic from Nick Anderson, that if you say Krieger 3 times in Mickey Mouse's voice while on Big Thunder Mountain, you get a Copper Creek cabin for the entire month of December.
I did not see that one.
No. Last time I was on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, I got evac from
that-
it, so
does
I don't
that
know if I
mean-
have luck with
No,
that
it
route.
actually only works on Splash Mountain. So just
okay.
make sure.
Does that mean we're like Beetlejuice? Isn't that like the name 3 times?
Apparently.
Yeah, something like that.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Try it.
something like that.
Try it. Who knows?
You never know. You never know. All right, folks. That's going to do it for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. See you again next week with another episode of The DVC Show. Have a great week.